Hello and welcome to a new episode of Mostly Engineering and another part in our Enigma build series. And today I want to finish our clamp assembly. Now the main component, what is the spring, I already have here, and it's a laser cut part from 0.5mm spring steel. But this is a version for the puzzle box, and you can see it that we have this little tab over here that allows us really conveniently to lift the spring and change the daily ring setting. So it's a really convenient design, but unfortunately it's not historically accurate. And second of all, I suspect that this tab would hinder the rotation of our rotor. So we have to cut it off and then manufacture the registering pin and the lift pin that instead of this tab will allow us to lift the spring and change the daily ring setting. So let's take care for the tab and then do the rest. So, and here we have our three parts we have to manufacture. The first two will make up our registering pin and be held together, as you see, by an M1.6 screw. And then we have the pin that will allow us to lift the clamp and change the ring setting. And here we have a little bit of a challenge because at this point over here, we have to hit very, very tight tolerances in order to achieve a press fit in this hole. Other than this, they are pretty straightforward parts, so let's go into them. So let's start with the parts, and we start with the top part of our registering pin. So basically a disc with a countersink hole in the middle and then some chamfer so that it looks a little bit nicer. So pretty straightforward part, still took about 15 minutes to manufacture because yes, it's straightforward, but we have 5 operations in total and 6 tool changes to do so. So that takes up quite a while, and in the end we also have, it's a tiny lathe, so we have basically not really a lot in power and rigidity, and to offset this we have to go very carefully and very slowly, and also, as always, use lots of cutting fluid. And then also what wasn't planned, I cut myself on the tooling. Didn't hurt at all, but it was bleeding a lot, so I had to take care for the wound. And also, that's a really nice sign that your tools are really nice and sharp. And the second part, so the lower part of the registering pin, again, a relatively simple part. Basically a tube with a thread inside. So I start with the round stock very deep in the collar chuck, so that while I'm drilling and tapping, the part is held very, very stable inside the chuck. And drilling first, and then again going very slowly, taking lots of cutting fluid, and then the tapping itself. Now for the tap, I use the machine for alignment and move the chuck and the tailstock by hand so that I have a really nice feel for the tap, how it's cutting, if it gets stuck, and so on and so forth. Have a really nice feel for when the tap hits the bottom, so that I basically can go very slowly, very carefully, and don't break off my tap in the thread. And again, use lots of cutting fluid. So that worked out really nicely as well. Then I pushed the part a little bit further out from the collar chuck to turn it down to its desired diameter and then cut it off. Then changed the collet, put the part back in, and worked on the other side. And here again, I have to say I'm really in love with this collar chuck because this part is like really, really small. 3.5 millimeters long and 2.5 millimeters in diameter, and yeah, it's even hard to hold on it just with your fingers, let alone work on it. And the collar chuck, you just put the part in, it's held very securely, you can just work on it like a dream. And it's hard to think now that any other tool could do this, and especially with the small parts, work holding is like one of the biggest challenges, to be fairly honest. But in the end, again, it came out really nicely too. And we are off to our last part, so the lifting pin. This time it's made from aluminium, and
To be fairly honest, aluminium on a lathe, it's not my favorite material because it's like really stringy. And it's also, at least for me, a lot harder to get a nice surface finish with this material. On a lathe, I much more prefer brass. Funnily enough, on the mill, it's exactly the way around, our way around. Here, I prefer aluminium over brass, but that's for another time. And on the length, I got off the plan. I just eyeballed it because in the end I thought like just 2.5 millimeters for the lifting pin. 2.5 millimeters is a little bit. Changed again the collet, put the part in the other side, and finished off the top side of the pin. So, and that's how we did the part. And let's take a closer look on the close-ups. So, and here we have all our parts to finish our clamp. Now our breast pieces will make up the pin that registers the daily ring setting, and we just screw it together and therefore clamp the clamp part in between. Very nice and very straightforward. And then we have our lift pin made from aluminium. This will go in this little hole over here, something like this. Come on. And then we go in with a corner, give it a little frag that will force the material outwards and bind the pin to the clamp. At least that's a theory, so let's test it and see. So, and here we have the finished clamp. Now, this pin is holding in with a little bit of glue as well, because just forcing the metal outwards with the corner wasn't enough. But now, with a tiny drop of super glue, it's hold on really tight and nicely. And in later iterations, we will use the Loctite metal glue that will hold up even better. And with this done, we have now all 176 parts of the rotor finished and are ready for wiring and final assembly. And on this high note, it's time to end the episode. If you have questions, comments, as always, let them down below and I try to answer them as quickly and correctly as possible. Like, subscribe, do the usual YouTube stuff, and all that's left to say now is thanks for watching and see you at the next time. Bye bye.